What's up, guys? How you doing? Where's my mic? Just had it on me. Putting it back on now. All right. What is going on? You're all wondering as you sit here and ask yourselves, what's this guy doing? Is he sitting in his living room? What's he talking to us about? The MMCast is live. Well, I'm going to tell you guys what's going on. I'm going to fill you in on all that. I'm going to give it a minute here and see if we get a couple viewers in here, and I will start to explain. This is a brand new thing. Not necessarily my kitchen, but the stream, the MMCast stream is a brand new thing. We have, we've done this in the past. We've streamed the show live when we've done the show, but Alex and I have been talking a lot recently about kind of new ideas for content to create. And with Modern Horizons coming out, it obviously felt like a really ideal time to get into this thing and start doing live streaming content. And with the YouTube growing the way that it's been growing, and how exciting Modern Horizons is. I recognize, guys, I'm not going to be just the eternal optimist here that's just looking at you and telling you, oh my God, Horizons is just only gas and it's going to completely change Modern. It is going to change Modern. And slowly but surely, you're going to watch these powerful cards that have just been printed in get more and more powerful and be added to decks. And new archetypes are going to be created. That's happening. They pushed the set enough that you're going to see really, really cool stuff. But more than anything, just with the expansion of Magic into esports and into Arena and all that, it felt like a good time for us to look at this channel and look at this show and come up with ways to create new content. For years, I've been talking to you guys about the idea that I wanted to start talking about my brews. And so I figured Modern Horizons was a pretty good place to start. And so I have Brew to tell you guys about today. I haven't gotten to play games with it yet. I played games with an earlier version of it from a long time ago, but today I have come up with an updated version that I'm excited to talk to you guys about. And so if you kind of stay tuned and stay in here for a few minutes, I will get to it. I don't exactly know how long I'm going to do the stream for. We've been live for about 2 minutes so far. We obviously have the studio, this office that we normally record the show from. That probably is the more likely and appropriate place to stream. However, being that I am here and I have this camera and this setup and I have this big floodlight, this guy back here, it's pointed down a little more, puts a lot of light on my face. I figured I would kind of give it a shot. So we got a few people in the chat here. And I will be interacting with the chat. That is kind of the idea of what we want to be doing here. But also, I don't know if any of you guys have done this before. You're probably a little bit more adept with this whole streaming thing than I am. I've started streaming on another channel, but that's a brand new channel. This channel's been around a few months, so none of the monetization stuff exists on there. There's super chat. I can see this little this dollar sign here. So I think it's live, and if you want to donate, I think it's something you can do. I don't expect necessarily I've been live for 3 minutes total ever. Nobody to do that yet, or if ever. But if you know how that works or you choose to do it, let me know. I'm sure I'll have a big geek out, noob moment the first time it happens because I don't really know how it works. There we go. Nick Clark, $1. Boom. Oh, my God. I just had the freak out moment. That's crazy. I think the donate chat is highlighted. That's really, really cool. That's amazing. Thank you, Nick Clark. You're the first dollar ever donated in a live chat on the MMCast. That has just happened. Anyway, wow. This is exciting. I feel like I need to take a selfie, but then where would I post it? People, you're an idiot. So, Nick, you're the man. Chally, boom, $2. Holy shnikes. I almost swore. I'm so excited. This is really cool. I'm hyped. There's a lot I want to talk to you guys about. Okay. Over the moon right now. I'm gonna keep going with this stream. We got a little over 20 people in here so far. So I think I'll probably do this for 32 an hour, is my guess. That is my Brandon S. Russell in there for $3. I am overwhelmed with the excitement of having you guys in here doing this. It's really cool. Wow, you can almost buy a pack of Modern Horizons 1, says Chally. Yeah, seriously, I know, blown away. All right, so I've been live for 4 minutes and 25 seconds. There's a little over 20 of you in here, and I'm gonna just because as the chat grows and as we get a few more people watching, I need to kind of continue to explain what I'm doing here because it's a brand new thing. Alex and I have done the Masters of Modern podcast since 2015, since the beginning of the year. We have been doing this show for 4.5 years. It's crazy. We've done hundreds of episodes, hundreds of hours. We are doing all kinds of cool stuff. We're going to be doing a live show in Seattle at Magic Fest Seattle. We hired a producer recently because our schedules got such that we could not keep up the show's consistent quality. And so we needed help. So now we're doing that. Now you guys know we have the YouTube up. There's card images on there. Looking for ways to improve it. And one of the things I thought about is that I don't know if I'm going to have time necessarily to get on Moto, because I've still never played enough Moto. I have played some to get really good at it. You know, like I can keep up. I'm better at Arena than I am at Moto. But for all the kind of dumb decks I like trying to build in Modern, there's a lot of weird interactions, and those interactions can be difficult to track on Moto. So it's possible that eventually I'll be good enough at it that I'll want to sit down and try to stream some of that stuff, or at least screen capture so I can then put the videos up. You know, Alex and I are talking about cool stuff we want to do on Patreon. You know, we have this Patreon, patreon.com/theMMcast, and there's a handful of you guys that support us there. We just haven't added new content to it for a while. And so the first step is going to be creating some streaming content here on this YouTube. And so what I'm doing today is the very first one. This is my first live stream for the MMcast I've ever done. Is I'm going to be talking to you guys about my first Modern Horizons inspired brew. Kind of the idea was that I looked through the set and there's a bunch of cards I want to try to brew with. But for a little while the set is being opened and people are hyped about it, I'm going to try each week to get in here and do a stream and talk to you guys about an idea for a brew. And I want to kind of hear your thoughts and we can interact about it. You guys can give me back your feedback. But Horizons is just such a cool set. There's so much awesomeness in the set that it feels like I would be doing a disservice to you guys and to myself to not at least take the opportunity to try to come up with some cool ideas. All right, I'm going to read some of the stuff in the chat here. And then it's 6:40. I think about 10 minutes in, I will start talking about the ideas for this brew. It's a blue brew, guys. Surprise, surprise. So all right, here we go. Justin Pekka, I'm dyslexic. Justin Pecoraro says, I am hyped for brews. I'm hyped for brews too, Justin. Really hyped. It's my favorite thing. I love coming up with dumb ideas. Modern is so powerful now that it's really hard to come up with ideas that are cool and even convince yourself they're even going to be remotely competitive. But I am going to try to come up with them because I love doing that. Let's see. Castican 2796. I like how technical MTGO is. It over-exaggerates the rules, which has its positives. Right. It teaches you fundamentals. It teaches you fundamentals and interactions and stuff. And it's not so much that I don't follow what's going on. I get all that. The problem with it is that to create a viewing experience that would be enjoyable for you guys with the kind of decks I build where it's like, you know, token comes into play, copied by Saheeli, Greater Gargadon. I'll sacrifice the thing with the trigger on the stack. But like, understanding how to stack those things so you don't screw up one of the things, then your whole thing falls apart is hard. And if you screw it up in the middle of a stream or the middle of a game, it can be really deflating and not very much fun. So I may get good enough at it at some point to actually start doing it consistently. But as it stands now, still something I'm working on. Arena, on the other hand, I played a lot of. Drafted on Arena quite a bit. I've actually played Arena like some, what's it called? Standard. I built a blue-green Merfolk deck. I got all the cards. I cashed in a ton of wild cards. I built my own version of it. So much fun. Won a lot. It was really good. I was surprised. Oh, look at this in the super chat. We got another Austin Spratt. I just want a lands deck. Saffron Olive's Abzan Drift looks freaking sweet. Yeah, I agree. He comes up with some really, really good stuff. So I'm very, very, very excited. Here we go. Kodak says 3 episodes ago you said you would release the new Mirror Superior Modern deck that you had been brewing up. Any updates? So I think actually, to be completely honest with you, Kodak, it's not the one I'm talking about today, but I wouldn't be surprised if next week on the stream or the week after, it's the deck that I just talk about. And the reason that you haven't gotten the list yet is because I didn't come up with a list that I was happy enough with. See, the difference between that list and the one I'm going to talk about today, for instance, today, it's just fully theoretical, right? I've put together a list of 60 that I think is really cool. I've goldfished it on my phone a ton of times. I know a lot of the cards, right? And I've kind of balanced it in my mind of certain interactions that I think it'll work with. But something like a Superior deck, because I've played so many real-life games with a shell similar to the one I built, I don't really want to put a list online unless I think it's actually an improved version because I've played it, right? I don't want to just tell you guys oh, go try this. Because I have real life experience of having tried it and I know what works. The sad part for me about Superior, if I'm being honest, is it's been outclassed. Since the days when I created Superior Burning Cocoa, a 5/6 for 2 was awesome. 7 power on turn 2 was great. You can just do so much crazier stuff than that now. I mean, even just going back to the Hollow One decks, but then, beyond the Hollow One decks, you obviously have Phoenix, and there's just the power level is really, really high and extremely degenerate. So I will release that new list. It's the thing that I'm going to do for sure, because I have it. It's a blue based one, and it plays some other cards, some other interactions that are really cool, but I'm not quite there yet. So we are 10 minutes into the stream. I'm going to start to talk to you guys about what my deck idea today is, and it comes inspired by the success of Mono Blue Tempo in Standard. That's where this came from. So Mono Blue Tempo obviously has been a real player in Standard. Now, when we debuted our set review for whatever set it was, Rivals of Ixalan probably, or one of the Ixalan sets, and they debuted Curious Obsession, I freaked out. I don't know if you guys remember, but when we did the set review, I loved Curious Obsession. Like, I thought that card was unreal. I thought that card was unbelievable. And just because it's still live here in the chat, it's Austin Spratt, you said you want a lands deck, Saffron Oliver's Absent. Drift looks friggin' sweet. Alex and I have talked about lands decks. We have very cool ideas for lands decks, and that comment will not be forgotten, because I think there's a decent chance if this streaming stuff starts going well, I'm going to get Alex to come up with a super cool like Ren and 6 deck that he wants to put on the stream. So, but for right now, this Mono Blue deck in Modern that is inspired by the Standard one runs 4 copies of Curious Obsession. Brandon S. Russell requests. You got it, my friend. So one of the things that I said on our set review for this current set, which, we are 2 videos in now, I think we've gotten through Black and the Cycle of Forces, is that the new fairy, I think it's called Fairy Seer. I'm just going to make sure here I got all the names right. Got it on my phone here in front of me. The new Fairy Seer. I'm excited about that card because I felt like in the sort of fairy-based tempo decks that really, really wanted to be able to play Spellstutter Sprite, you didn't actually get to have a quality 1-drop. So you end up, if you want to play like some of the 1-drop fairies, fine, but most of the 1-drop fairies sucked, Like, you could get real clever with Fairy Miscreant, which I did, and it's in this deck. But Fairy Seer allows you to play like, 18, 19 lands and actually hit a 1-drop that can dig you out of a like a 1-lander. Is really going to help set up your game plan to take advantage of the fact that you're playing all these super, super low CMC blue cards. So the printing of Fairy Seer was kind of the inspiration for this deck. And then, of course, the other card that was printed in Modern Horizons that really pushed the idea over the edge for me was Force of Negation. The previous version of this that I had built and actually tried to play some games with was playing 4 copies of Disrupting Shoal, which is really cool. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's Disrupting Shoal is great, but it wasn't good enough to be the only free counterspell. So now the fact that you have both Disrupting Shoal and Force of Negation to back up a mono blue creatures package, I don't know how aggressive the deck gets to be, and I don't necessarily know, like, when you compare it to all of the really good stuff people are doing. In the chat here, Austin Spratt says, I think Hogak is good. And obviously that's a joke because, of course, Hogak is good. He's part of the Alternate Dimension deck that's just like destroyed Modern the last week and a half, 2 weeks, the Dredgevine lists. But that's the thing, is like a deck like that, the deck like, a Hogak deck, that's kind of that power level I'm talking about with Modern, where we've gotten to this point now that it's like, just playing cute, clever, fun stuff and interactions that you're excited about can't totally compete with the tier 1 stuff. On the other hand, if you actually take something out there that's efficient and tuned well, you may find the edges of your idea are close enough to where they need to be that if you alter it with a few cards, you add a few things, it actually gets you where you need to get to. And I haven't gotten to test this deck in real life yet, but I will talk to you guys a little about what I'm doing. So Fairy Seer as a 4 of in the deck, is the key. That's the key new 1-drop. And so obviously you're playing 4 copies of Fairy Seer. You're playing 4 copies of Spellstutter Sprite because that card is great. And Modern is dominated by 1-drops, and flashing in a flying creature for 2 to counter a Faithless Looting or an Ancient Stirrings or something like that. Lucas DeWald says, hi, Ben. Nice to see you streaming. Thank you, Lucas. Thanks for tuning in. This is super fun. Wait, that's not my friend. That's not my friend, Lucas, is it? Formerly known as Lucas Bischofberger. Because that wouldn't make any sense. Why would you have a different last name? You didn't. I don't think you took your wife's last name. Maybe? Doubtful. Anyway, Lucas DeWald, thanks for the comment. So 4 copies of Fairy Seer, 4 copies of Spellstutter Sprite, and for me that's like where the idea for this starts, because I really, really, really wanted to be able to cast Spellstutter Sprite on turn 2 effectively and have something on turn 1 that I like really, really wanted to do. So The next card is Fairy Miscreant, which I just mentioned, which is funny. By the way, Castic N2796, there's 31 viewers and only 6 likes now. I encourage you guys, like the video if you're watching. Give it a thumbs up. Let's try to make this thing work and actually have the channel succeed in that regard. And honestly, if you're not subscribed already, which I think you probably are, I would imagine you are if you're watching this because that's how you got the notification. But if you are not already subscribed, guys, please go ahead and click subscribe and click the alert button to make sure you know when we go live next time. Justin, I'm so bad at your name. Justin Pecacaro asks, have I seen the Sultai Fairy Ninjas list? I have. It's actually what got me inspired to start thinking about this list again. And it's a sweet list. I mean, it's doing a more powerful thing than this is doing in the sense that it's putting bigger things into play for cheaper with ninjutsu, but it's also easier to interact with if you kill the creature ahead of time. And there's a lot of things you can do to interact with that deck. This deck is so low to the ground. It's so cheap. I think it's cool. We'll see. I need to play some games with it. But for Fairy Miscreant, which is a 1/1 flying fairy for 1, but when it enters the battlefield, if you control another Fairy Miscreant, you draw a card. So that's kind of my card advantage, right? Like that deck plays the new lore thing, Kodal, and all that, and it's ninjutsuing it back to hand. Well, this deck is playing 4 copies of Fairy Miscreant, 4 copies of Fairy Seer, 4 Spellstutter Sprite. I will get to the non-creature cards pretty soon here. It is playing 3 copies currently, and the previous list played 2, but I think 3 is better, of Scion of Una, which is the flying flash 3 mana 1/1 fairy that all the fairies you control get +1/+1 and Shroud. So I don't like playing as many copies of 3-drops in this deck because of the fact that it wants to be able to play so few lands. Like this deck really wants to be able to function on 2 lands. And so previously it played 2. It is playing 4 Aether Vial, which I was going to sandbag. I'll get there. But the Vial allows you, I think, to play the Scions. You know, you basically want this deck to get a Vial up to 2 or 3. You are playing 1 Vendilion Click, you know, which is just a little bit more beef, a little more power in the air, and obviously 1 more kind of disruptive thing. And then the last creatures you're playing, and currently this list is like 63 cards because I was just toying with it before I went live, and I didn't settle on the exact list. But I am playing 1 Fairy Imposter, which probably gets cut. I've always loved this card. It is a 1 blue, 2/1 Fairy Rogue. When it enters the battlefield, unless you return another creature you control to your hand, sacrifice it. So it's a dangerous creature, right? It's definitely a dangerous creature to play. You can get blown out in a deck that plays so few creatures. You play it at the right moment. It's definitely, obviously, not a 1-drop. It's probably not a 2-drop unless you're holding open a counterspell. But it helps with, you know, you're getting extra value off of like your what's it called? Like most of your creatures, your Spellstutter Sprites, you want to play again. Your Fairy Seers, you can scry again. Your Fairy Miscreants, you want to play to draw a card again. So having that 1 copy of Fairy Imposter. Austin Spratt says, what ice cream topping should I get, Ben? The reason I read this is because it's super chatted, which is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I've never done the super chat until this is the very first time I've ever used it, but it's blowing my mind. And the answer to your question, Austin Spratt, is probably something Haagen-Dazs is my move. But I will tell you guys, have any of you ever had Halo Top? Have you tried Halo Top? I know this became like a trendy thing last year. Earlier in the year, I was trying to slim down. I lost like 30 pounds. And one of the things I did was like, all right, like everybody's got a sweet tooth, right? So I was just like, I want to continue this weight loss thing. I want to get down to my goal. So I ended up buying Halo Top, and it was amazing. It was so good. It's like a quarter of the fat and calories and shit that's normally in your body, and it tastes almost exactly the same. Mind blowing. Austin Spratt, I would recommend Haagen-Dazs or Halo Top. Actually, the Haagen-Dazs bars. That's what you should get. Done. I love those things. The bars, the chocolate covered bars, like milk chocolate, and they've got the stuff in the middle. The boxes of them you get at the grocery store. I love those things. I will eat those things to death. But getting back to the deck, so the Fairy Imposter, you know, it's a 2/1 flying Fairy Rogue, and when it enters, you return a creature. So it has the added functionality. Now, I mentioned Curious Obsession. It obviously does not play very well with Curious Obsession. You don't want to bounce a creature that has an aura on top of it. But in general, you have the ability to do some really cool stuff. It also allows you to return the Scion of Una to your hand if necessary, because Scion of Una gives your creature Shroud, not Hexproof, which means that if you want to put a Curious Obsession on a creature and it's a fairy, and you have a Scion down, you won't be able to with the Scion in play. So that is the truth. Now, the last card, the last creature in the deck, and this is weird and funky, and I'm just It seems cool to me. I put in 2 copies of Unsettled Mariner, and I know there's white in that card, right? Unsettled Mariner is the brand new shapeshifter. It's a 2/2 for white-blue. It's a changeling, so it's every creature type. It is also a fairy. Whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or an ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless its controller pays 1. Now, the reason I like this card in this deck, it's obvious, right? It's a card that would go in humans or any of these decks. Like it's a card that helps protect everything you're doing. But because we're an Aether Vial deck, that specifically wants to be getting our vials up to 2 and 3, because you don't really need a vial on 1. Like, it's fine if you flash in one of these 1-drops when your vial takes to 1. You most likely will. But you're going to get your vial up to 2 or 3, and that's going to be the point. And so Unsettled Mariner, just like Scion of Una giving your creature Shroud or Spellstutter or Sprite, V-Click, all your heavier creatures that cost 2 and 3 affect the board or interact in some way. And so I like the idea that I just have an extra 2/2 that with a Scion is now a 3/3. It's going to push a little bit more damage. And also, they won't see it coming because it's one of the only white cards in the deck. The fact that I'm going to white slightly means that I can play a very, very tight mana base that has like access to 8 or 9 white sources just to get them. And now I can play a couple copies of Path if I need to. There's also really good white sideboard options. The deck still functions as mono blue, and this is an idea I came up an hour ago that I decided I wanted to come and stream to talk to you guys about. Quick shout out, guys. There are now 45 of you in the chat, which is really, really fun. It's cool to be talking to almost 50 of the fans of this show. Couple questions as I get into the second half of this deck tech. How long have you listened to the show for? Where did you find the show? Are you just a YouTube listener? Have you been an audio listener for a long time? Leave your thoughts in the chat here. If anybody here wants to add to this deck as I'm coming up with it, I see some people asking about card thing. I'm absolutely going to talk about that and throw some of these things in here. As you heard, quick shout out to we got Austin Spratt, we got Nick Clark, Chally, and Brandon S. Russell are the 4 people that have super chatted. It is the first 4 super chats that have ever happened on the Masters of Modern YouTube channel. So if you have a longer comment or an idea that you really want read and responded to, feel free to super chat. Otherwise, I may just get to your comment anyway. There's not that many in here, so I'm going to try to get to them. And as a reminder to everybody here, oh, there goes my mic. Hang on one second. As a reminder to everybody here, Alex and myself have a Patreon, patreon.com/theMMcast that we have not updated in a little while. We had a long conversation last night about some of the cool stuff that we really, really want to add to it. And so go check that out. Support the Patreon, patreon.com/theMMcast. We're going to be doing some exclusive stuff there pretty soon, really soon, actually. Some stuff like this, deck techs, but a little bit more like refined and less even brews, but like, the 10-minute video deck techs of like A-list type A decks in Modern that are, tier 1 and winning. So, all right, couple people here responding. Castic in 2796, 7 months ago when YouTube started, I love the show, influenced plenty of MTGO deck choices. That's really cool. We're so happy to know that when we switched over and started really pushing this YouTube channel, we got a new audience because we had been audio for 4 years or something, or 3.5 years. And so, okay, here you go. Listener for about a year, listening for a while, probably 2 years now. You were on Anchor, says Jacob Fisher. I recognize your name. The Anchor show was fun. Some of what I'm doing here with the streaming is a little bit reminiscent of that. Brandon S. Russell, who's in the chat here, you were one of the big supporters of the Anchor shows. I did 2 of them. There was 10 minutes of Magic, 10 minutes of Modern. I even did actually the full 10 minutes show on Wizardry Foundry. I was doing 10 minutes of Modern for them for like 6 months. They were doing Facebook videos. And so I definitely was, I'm pretty used to doing the one-man show thing. But in any case, either way, I'm very excited to have you guys here. And Jeff Roberts, yeah, big fan of Jeff Roberts. That was another Anchor listener, but obviously listened to the show before that, has interacted quite a bit. And so, Jeff, thank you so much for all of the support, all you guys in here. This is really cool. We've got in the 40s now. All right, so we're halfway through this list. I'm going to get back to it. And again, anybody who's watching or listening, be sure to hit the like, subscribe, notification button, all that stuff. Let's make sure we keep this thing growing. Obviously we've got twice as many people watching that have hit the like button. All you got to do is just click like. So let's keep talking about this list. So the Creature Suite, to recap one more time. And again, this list is more like 63 cards as of right now because I haven't actually refined it down perfectly, but I am getting there. So 1 Fairy Imposter, 4 Fairy Miscreant, 4 Fairy Seer, 4 Spellstutter Sprite, 2 Unsettled Mariner, 3 Scion of Una, and 1 Vendilion Click. Now let's get to the spell suite. As I mentioned, we start with 4 Aether Vial. Why does Aether Vial need to be in this deck when so many of your creatures cost 1? It's a good question, and it's one I've been asking myself a lot. I think the fact that you have so many one drops and redundancy one drops, so like the Fairy Seer wanting to come down and scry, but then you also wanting to create a clock, the Fairy Miscreant wanting a second copy of Fairy Miscreant, the Fairy Imposter bouncing things back to your hand. I think the fact that you have all that stuff makes me feel like you want to be able to start generating the mana advantage while also kind of sculpting your hand. You've got a bunch of counter spells coming up here I'm going to be talking about in a second. There is not a list online so far, asks Jeff Roberts. I probably will export this and just like put it up somewhere when this is done. We're kind of getting to the second half of this whole idea of streaming where I don't totally know exactly what to do. And I didn't see this comment a second ago. Says Austin Spratt, I'll take 2 Alex Bear tokens and 2 Ben Fairies. Yeah, well, we do have those custom tokens. I play with my own tokens that are the Fatale tokens because I played a vampire on that show top decking that Alex created. So for Aether Vial, the thing I like about the Vial is that it allows you to play like more copies of a Scion of Una or Spellstarter Sprite, cards like that, Unsettled Mariner, and not have to leave open the 2 mana for your flash creatures. If you can, great. But the fact that you're playing counter spells and creatures, it means you're going to have turns where you're going to be able to flash in a creature and play a counter spell the same turn. That's kind of the idea behind the Aether Vial for now. Next up, for Curious Obsession, maybe my favorite card in the entire deck. Curious Obsession, obviously a standard all-star, 1 blue, aura. When the enchanted creature gets +1/+1 at the end of your turn, if the creature hasn't attacked, sacrifice Curious Obsession. But when it connects, deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. So having a bunch of 1/1 flyers for 1 and evasive creatures that you can put down Curious Obsession on, all of a sudden you're swinging with a 2/2 flyer that's drawing you a card. It's a strong move. You'll get far doing that. It's not great against Phoenix, I'll tell you that. It's definitely not great against Thing in the Ice. This deck probably in the main deck is not going to be very good against Phoenix decks. But you do play a lot of counter spells, so you can at least shut down you'll be able to probably counter their Faithless Lootings pretty well. And you are playing, some bounce spells that we'll get to here. So more coming on that in a second. Codox, do you think right now is a good time to pick up cards that are low price, like Season's Pyromancer at $8.50? I think this set long term is actually a money set. I think that people have this sense of it right now that it's not that powerful. People are calling it Commander Masters, et cetera, et cetera. I think if you pick up the mythics that are sweet, that drop low, that are good, cards like a Seasoned Pyromancer, that's just a great example of just like a super fun Magic card that you're going to want to play in decks for years, and not even necessarily just like modern decks. Like that's just the kind of good card you'll want to just play. Commander players will like having a creature that lets you discard things that sits in your graveyard, generates value. Graveyard players, like we have our format, Highlander Gauntlet, like that card's going in Highlander Gauntlet. So I think cards like that it's an $8 mythic. What are the chances it's going to go lower than 8? Very least, it's probably a good time to buy in. So that's my response there. For Curious Obsession, now we get to the spell suite. A lot of 1s and 2s and 3s, and that's because I haven't played this deck yet, and so I have ideas of how this is going to work. But 1 Dispel. Obviously, 1 mana counter spells and low CMC blue tempo decks are very good. Modern has tons and tons of instants. 1 Path to Exile, which previously would have been 2 Dismember, but I went to 1 Dismember, 1 Path because I added the Mariners. So now that I have a little bit of white, I think having access to 1 of each is a good thing. It could be wrong. It might be just better to get rid of all the white and just keep the deck totally mono blue. Not totally sure. The last idea would be obviously to get rid of the white entirely, keep the Aether Vial plan, throw in 4 Magus of the Moon, a little bit of red, and have the ability to vial in a Magus of the Moon, or just like hard cast it on turn 3. But that seems a lot worse because then I think you get into red. Now you're going to start playing Lightning Bolt, and the deck's not as good. And if you're going to play a blue-red deck, just play Phoenix. The fact that it's mono blue, I think, is strong. But I like having the white. So after the Path to Exile and the 1 Dismember, you have 2 Spell Pierce, 1 Spell Snare, 2 Vapor Snag, 1 Deprive, which I like in this deck because you're playing so few lands, but such a low curve, having just hard counterspell basically. Now, you could be playing Wizard's Retort because I would say how many of the creatures are wizards? You've got 4 Fairy Seer, 4 Spellstutter Sprite, 2 Unsettled Mariner, and 1 Vendilion Click. So you have a decent percentage of your creatures that are wizards, but I still just think Deprive, for the same reason that I don't want to play Familiar's Ruse in this deck. It seems great, but if I need to return a creature that I can't afford to return, Familiar's Ruse is going to be a really bad card, much in the same way that if I needed to play a Wizard's Retort, but I didn't have the correct creature and it was boxed out by 1 land, I would be upset with myself for playing that instead of Deprive. So the 1 Deprive. 3 Disrupting Shoal, 3 Force of Negation, one snapback. Now, as I said, I just have listed off 63 cards. If I had to guess the cards that are going to leave, the snapback more than likely gets cut. I wouldn't be surprised if the Very Imposter goes away. And if I end up going down to 2 Scion of Una, not going to be shocked. Those are the places that I see the opportunities to cut cards down. The mana base that I currently have listed, it's 20 lands. It probably can be less than that. I was previously playing cantrips and I cut them because of the Fairy Seer. So, but I'm sorry, I'm shaking the counter here, guys. But 4 Seachrome Coast, 4 Flooded Strand, 1 Hallowed Fountain, 11 Island is what I currently have listed. I probably can drop that to 10 Island. I think 19 lands is okay. But when I cut the opts, because I was playing 4 opt, that's when I decided I had to go up. The 4 Fairy Seer allow you to cycle out of a 1 mana, like a 1-lander. You can scry those cards away. That should help you. And then also like the Fairy Miscreant and the Curious Obsession, like those things get you card advantage to kind of get back ahead. But yeah, so Castic N 2796 asks, should we move the Shoal to the sideboard? And it's possible Shoal goes down to 2 copies. Here's the thing. Force of Negation's awesome. And what Force of Negation is going to allow you to do in this deck is things like not lose to a resolved Karn, right? Like it's going to allow you to do stuff to draw extra cards off your Curious Obsession, to draw the right counter spells. It's going to allow you to develop your board, but also, ditch your extra whatever, your bad blue card you don't need. It's going to stuff like that. But unfortunately, because you can't do it on your turn, you still need the ability to resolve a creature, say, cast a Curious Obsession, on turn, like okay, you want to like 1-drop creature, play 1-drop, cast Curious Obsession, attack. If they have the Lightning Bolt, then you definitely want to be able to have that Disruption Shoal to pit Fairy Miscreant to protect your creature or something like that. It's like not great value, but you definitely want to be able to like protect yourself from getting 2 for 1 when you go for the Curious Obsession plan, because it's such an important part of the card advantage in the deck. Or like if you do go for a Fairy Miscreant and then you try to return it to your hand with a Fairy Imposter and they try to blow you out, obviously 2 for 1ing yourself is not great. But if they're going to 2 for 1 you with your threat on the board, and you actually just going to 2 for 1 yourself with like 2 blue cards, a situational counterspell, and like your V-Click or something that you're not going to be able to cast, maybe you do that. I'm not totally sure. Again, this is all stuff that I have to kind of toy with and find out. Jeff Roberts, you can drop 1 Shoal for 1 Commandeer, and I've thought about it, but the issue that I have with Commandeer is ditching 2 cards is going to be very, very difficult. Like this is already a deck that's not creating a super fast clock. So 2 for 1ing yourself to maintain tempo and draw those extra cards is fine. 3 for 1ing yourself, I don't know. I mean, stealing a Karn, don't get me wrong, but like they're not going to play Karn into a free counterspell deck if they can avoid it anyway, unless they absolutely have to. And at that point, maybe you have 3 cards left and maybe one's Commandeer and the other 2 are blue cards, but like, as much as I want to steal your Karn or like, whatever, gain control, whatever powerful spell, at the same time, it's very likely that Prive's just going to get the job done and I'll just be able to counter it. So those are kind of my first thoughts for this deck, guys. Those are the initial ideas for a mono blue tempo deck in Modern. If you in the chat who are listening, who are watching, have ideas for things that you would suggest for this deck, feel free to add them now. I'll read off some of the things. Again, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, if there's any longer thought or tangent that you want me to kind of go on for a few minutes here, feel free to utilize the super chat so I make sure I catch your comment. But otherwise, that is the initial main deck here. And I think I'll find a way to probably type this out and post it somewhere. The other question I have for you guys who are watching and listening to this, as well as thoughts on this deck, do you guys have ideas for segments that you want to see us do on the show? Are there things that you wish you were getting more of that you're not getting? Stuff like that. I would really love to know your guys' thoughts, your feedback. We are really trying to develop the next level and step up our content here as we get into 2020, the end of 2019. Alex and I really want to make sure we're creating great opportunities for you guys as listeners of the show to interact and kind of get what you're all looking for. Or, even if you just have questions for me, like we don't do a lot of like one-on-one interaction like this. So if you guys have if you're curious about anything, feel free to ask. We are going to be in Seattle. We're doing a live podcast at GP Seattle, at Magic Fest Seattle. That's next weekend. We're going to be doing that. So Alex and I are doing a live show. We're really, really excited to do that. I think it's going to be a great time. We haven't done a live show in a few years, since Grand Prix Los Angeles, probably in like 2016 or 17 or something like that. But Channel asked us if we wanted to do that, and we are getting ready for the very first sanctioned Highlander Gauntlet tournament, which is going to be in Vegas in August. GP Vegas, we're doing that. So we'll be in Seattle talking about that. We'll have our Highlander Gauntlet wheels. Oh, that's one for you. There's a question I have for you guys who are in the chat, because in theory, a lot of you guys are listeners of the show and also have been watching the YouTube. And we put up a video, Eric Weiditz and myself, sitting at this very same table, talking about the format of Highlander Gauntlet. And we did that like about 3 weeks ago. And on the whole, there was a lot of like very confused reactions to the format. A lot of people had, there were some negative things said in the comments, but it was mostly just like people didn't understand what the appeal of having so many decks was. It seemed like people were definitely disappointed by the idea that you would sort of need to invest so much time and energy and money into this format. And I can attest, as somebody who's played the crap out of it, it's the most fun format there is. I mean, I love Modern. Gauntlet's my favorite format there is, period. I've never enjoyed a format more. It is daunting, but you don't have to have all of the expensive cards to start. You can start by buying a couple Highlander decks. Or Commander decks, I should say. Swap out some cards to make them a little more like, 1v1 competitive, but the power level of those cards is still extraordinarily high. And then go from there. Like that's just a thing you can do. And so, when we bring new players into the test group, we often will encourage them to bring 3 decks rather than 6. And the ultimate plan, the game plan, is to have 6 decks. That's what, like in a sanctioned tournament, you need to have 600 cards. But in the short term, when we have players show up, we'll encourage them to bring 3, because that's how you can start. Then you have to add to your 4th and 5th. I've got a super chat comment over here from Nick Clark. I would love to see Alex and Ben post VODs of playtesting all the decks brews in Modern. VODs. Can you explain to me what you mean when you say VODs? Video on demand? Is that what you're getting at? Like, so as in we would go in, we would produce all of the, basically matchup content of all of the main good decks versus our fun brews, and then, be able to share them on here. So explain that to me if you can, Nick, so I can see kind of what's going on. But what I will say is that Highlander is my favorite format. It's really fun. If you are confused about it or wondering if it's fun or it's cool and you're going to be at one of these tournaments, find me, find Alex. We'll have a wheel. You can play your gauntlet against itself. So if you have 6 decks, you can sit down, you can hand one of the decks to your buddy, and you guys can just roll off and just randomly play the wheel against itself, which is a really, really fun way to do it, a fun way to start. So I am trying to develop that format more and get it out there. And so, if you guys have any questions about it or excited about it, let me know. I would love to share that and spread that out. But we're almost 40 minutes in here. I think at 45 minutes, I'm going to cut the stream here, guys. This is the very first the MMcast stream ever. That is the one-man show version like this, where it's not just the regular show, but just like a regular content stream. And so that is this is going to be kind of a new thing I'm doing. I think I don't know the time yet. I don't know if this is a good time for you guys. I don't know if, early afternoon on a Friday is a time that works for you guys. I'm going to sort of find when I have an hour periodically to do this. And the goal would be to take some of these ideas for decks, build them, take them to local shops or even just on Moto and play some games and actually get a sense of how they function, so I can share with you guys if the ideas have legs at all or if they're just total crap. But I will, for at least the next few weeks, be doing these streams, building brews around Modern Horizons cards that I'm excited to play with. And I'm going to be bringing them on here and doing deck techs just like this. And yeah, I think that's the plan. So like I said, I'm here for about another 5 or 6 minutes. If you guys have any comments or questions, feel free to share them. I'm going to comb through here and see if I can share some of the comments and highlight some of you guys that are watching. A huge thank you for the very first one of these to have over 40 people, 40, 50 people in here for a while has been pretty cool. This is a really fun thing. I'm glad to see that the community that watches the show is interested in hanging out with me, just talking about Magic, because I love it. All right, let's see. Okay, so IR Hero 209. By no means do I think I made that, but my buddy and I do that with our commanders, 1v1. We roll a die to pick our first deck. First to beat the other guys, 3 decks to win. Exactly, yeah. It's a similar kind of a thing. It's super duper fun. If you have variety like that you can mix it up, that's what keeps the format fresh. And if you guys are watching or listening and you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a 5-minute video from about 3 weeks ago. Eric Weiditz and myself explain all the nuances of Highlander Gauntlet, what it is. I think the video is titled the best Magic format in the world or something like that. Let's see here. Austin Spratt says, I will literally give you $1 if you make a good Ice Fang Kotal deck. I mean, you have to understand that there is no way I'm not going to build an Ice Fang Kotal deck. Like, that card is the closest thing to Baleful Strix that we have in Modern. And I've wanted Baleful Strix in Modern forever. So I have a whole Unearth Ice Fang Kotal deck that I'm working on. It's very similar to the old Delver deck that I was playing in Legacy from years ago. And I probably will debut that pretty soon here and make sure that I share it on here. That's, like I said, there's a lot of decks that I really want to talk about and share on here for you guys. So, okay, so Jeff Roberts has the question, ever considering doing a pre-arranged live call-in show with fans to talk decks and cards? Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be great to have you guys call in, especially those of you that have been listeners for such a long time. It's funny, when I was doing 10 minutes of Modern, 10 minutes of Magic, and I had that call-in feature on Anchor, I got used to hearing your voices. I got used to having you guys call in and kind of tell me what you thought. And that show was really fun. Like, I don't know how many of you guys were Anchor guys and listened to that show, but when I was doing Mental Magic, or what was that called? Yeah, I think we just called it Mental Magic, right? That was so much fun. Like, going the go back and forth challenges with you guys. I mean, it got ludicrous and totally absurd and out of hand. And there was like, I can't even remember the rules all the way, but like I had to explain them so many times on the show. But it was really, really fun. And I was, very appreciative to have the audience that I had. So, all right, guys. Again, last chance for questions and comments here before I get out of here on the very first one of these. Austin Anderson, what's your current brew looking like? Let's see. It's Ben. Love you, bud. It's great seeing you in VODs at tourneys. That's the second time somebody says VODs. Am I old? Am I dumb? What is VOD? Video on demand? Video coverage? VODs on tourneys? Not sure. Yeah, Jeff Roberts, most fun MTG content I ever interacted with. It was so much fun. Next stream, asks Castic and 2796. I don't know. I was thinking of doing these once a week. I didn't want to like overdo it. On the other hand, when it comes to Magic content, if you have a new idea and you want to talk it through, maybe I'll do another one soon. I mean, I'm definitely getting used to this like one-man straight-to-camera thing. I've done VODs or like archived stream content, says Jeffrey Simon. Gotcha. I've gotten used to doing this. I've done 6 of these now for Action Industries, which is my other channel that I do with Andrew Guy and the Action Guys and all of our action shows. We've gotten very used to doing these one-man streams that we're doing. We have a schedule there. We do 3 times a week, actually. And those streams it's a lot of movie-related stuff. It's movie reviews. It's talking about the Schmodown. And so go check that out if you're not already subscribed to that channel and you like any of that stuff that I do. Or even if you just want to support me because you're awesome and you're just like, hey, whatever Ben's doing, I want to make sure that if you want to do that, Action Industries is my other YouTube channel, and that one is a really, really, really fun channel that we're coming out with great stuff there. I do a stream solo every week on Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time over there, and I do a paired stream at 5 with Andrew on Mondays and 2 p.m. on Thursdays. He does a solo stream. Let's see here. What's good? Could we donate here for Deck Doctor help? Absolutely. There was an old segment that we used to do on the Patreon, patreon.com/theMMcast, that was, you guys would, at the $5 level, you could submit one idea every month for like a deck, and we would deck doctor your deck on the show. And through a combination of our schedules and I think asking a lot of the fans, and then like so many of the episodes being designated to like be a set review, we sort of ran out of time for that, and the segment sort of died. But maybe doing it on here on the stream is a better way to do it. It just sort of depends. We want to find that exclusive Patreon content, and so I think that that's still a good idea, but stay tuned for that. What's good? That feels like definitely something we could be doing, is helping you guys come up with fun ideas, or at least much worse cards that we think are adorable to throw into your good decks. How much hypothetically? I mean, if we did it like the old one, it would probably be like I said, the $5, the $10 tier on Patreon or something. You would go donate once, and we would tech your deck. And if it's on the stream, I have no idea. I don't want to estimate numbers, just because the fact that I've even gotten a few dollars on this stream is blowing my mind. The super chat feature, like I said, is the first time I've ever used it. I'm so honored and so humbled that you guys just hanging with me wanted to give a couple bucks. So even if it was just for the express purpose of having my old man reaction be so blown away by it. So yeah, stay tuned. What's good? I think that's the best way to do it. If you're not already a patron, go join at the $5 level, patreon.com/theMMcast. Send us a message with your idea. That's probably the best way to get it started. And, we will talk about it. Let's see here. Another question. Castic 2796. Would anyone else want to see content from the point of view like, I'm playing Phoenix, these are my hard matchups, this is your sideboard plan, don't let them achieve this before you have... Okay, so that's great content, and probably that's content that we can achieve. The biggest issue with that is that Alex and myself are so busy, we don't get to jam hours and hours and hours of Modern every week anymore. Like we are so much more. We look at the results, we watch coverage. If there's an event coming up, we'll test a deck a bit. But like going through matchup stuff, there's a lot of Magic pros that are really good at that sort of thing. And we can try to bring those pros on. We have great relationships with the pro community. But in terms of just like Phoenix in particular, I could speak on because I played a lot of it. But in general, it's not going to be something. Before I get out of here, I want to remind everybody watching and listening, the single most important thing you can do if you want to know about the next stream is hit that notification button. Subscribe, like this video. There are almost 40 of you still watching and only 25 likes. So before you get out of here, click like, click subscribe, click the notification button. So the next time we go live, you'll know about it. You'll find out. YouTube will let you know. I think if I had to guess the next stream, it won't be this weekend. It'll be next week sometime. And I would have to think I'll probably end up doing it on just kind of a random day. I may decide ahead of time enough that I can give like a heads up, but just like this time, it'll probably be close to an hour. I'll spend the first 15 or so minutes kind of meandering and talking to you guys before I start to get into the deck tech. And that is kind of what I'm doing. So if that's the question, what's good is when the next stream, I don't necessarily know. I'm on the road for a lot of next week. I have to go to Seattle. I'm in Michigan. I've got the GP. I go to Philly right after Michigan. So I've got a day back in LA on Thursday, and I'm here taping 6 hours of movie review stuff on Monday. But I'm going to try. Like I said, I had a lot of fun doing this. It was super cool to interact with you guys. So once again, I'm just going to give a quick big thanks to each of the Super Chat contributors. We got Nick Clark. We got Chally. We got Brandon S. Russell. Austin Spratt, and then one more time, just because it was the big donation here at the end, Nick Clark. Thank you guys all so much. Thanks for watching. Thanks for contributing. And I will be back again very soon at Baby Media. Follow me on Twitter. Bye, guys.